I like to look at the other way around. Why are the boundaries weak? What is the reason that you allow the boundaries to go? And it's based on value. What do you value higher? Your X, Y, or Z, or this other human, or the need of this situation, or the fact that you haven't eaten and it's 3:00 in the afternoon, but I have to get this done. Like, it's what do you value? And I understand that tunnel vision is cool and you can get a lot of stuff done, but it's not a sustainable practice.
Right.
And we understand that being generous is amazing, but it's not a sustainable practice.
Right.
So what I do for the people I'm leading is get them to get a level above and check the knee-jerk decision over the weight. Does this person really deserve a drop of my blood? Do they actually deserve it? Have they earned it in my life? Or is this a knee-jerk reaction that I'm so used to when people press me in a certain way that I'm going to move my feet to make them happy?
Welcome to Hopeful and Wholesome, the show where ambitious women come home to their bodies. I'm your host, Hope Pedraza, and I'm a functional practitioner, human design guide, and expert on all things energy, and your partner in decoding the language of your body. This is your space to reconnect with your body's wisdom, reclaim your energy, and rise into alignment in your health, your business, and your life. Because thriving isn't about pushing harder, it's about learning to listen deeper. So let's dive in because your next breakthrough starts right now. Hey y'all, welcome back to Hopeful and Wholesome. Today I have on the show Sally Reid, and Sally has a rare ability where she can see exactly where people are stuck and shift what no one else has been able to touch. After 2 near-death experiences, she gained an unshakable understanding of human potential and the unseen patterns that shape our lives. And these patterns aren't mindset issues, they're the protective mechanisms that people put in place a long time ago. She is the creator of the BLISS system, which is a powerful energetic method designed for women who've done it all, quote unquote, right. They've done all the right things, therapy, journaling, yoga, spiritual work, but they still feel unhappy underneath it all. So if you've tried everything and nothing has worked, what Sally does and the work she does is where the struggle ends. And she is especially knowledgeable in HSP or highly sensitive people. And that's what we're talking about today. And what exactly it means to be a highly sensitive person, what it means to operate in this world as an HSP, and really the challenges that we can actually use as strengths and really how we can function in the best way possible and how we can kind of break out of whatever box we've put ourselves in. For those of us who are HSPs, or if you don't know you're a highly sensitive person, you might have a different opinion about yourself after you listen to this episode. So let's jump in and hear what Sally has to say. All right, y'all, I'm here with Sally. Thank you so much for joining us today, Sally.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, I'm excited for this conversation. And as I mentioned before I hit record, I think this is going to resonate with so many of the women listening. And I think that some women listening might even have some aha moments where they didn't know that this applied to them until we start talking about it. And they're like, oh, this is me. So I'm excited to give some people some breakthroughs here because I think it's going to be really powerful for so many women. I want to start by just kind of laying the foundation for what we're talking about here. And your magic comes with you working with highly sensitive people. Can you explain what that is, what that means?
Highly sensitive people are not, people who are like, oh, I'm so emotional all the time. No, that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about a literal genetic difference that causes you to be more sensorily sensitive, meaning the kind way of calling it is like the super noticer. Like, can you not walk down the aisle, where the perfume is because it stinks so bad, or the music is too loud, or the lights, or the people? Like, you are noticing that there's a lot of information coming in all at once. Do tags on the back of your shirts drive you into exhaustion, or an earring that isn't quite right in your ear or something? Or when you pick up the phone and the earring clicks, you're like, oh, this thing has to go. It's that kind of a thing.
For me, it was the seams of my socks as a kid, all growing up, and I'm still so sensitive about the seams in my socks. So this is all resonating.
And it's a literal genetic difference. And there's a reason for that. This work wasn't formally done until Dr. Elaine Aron really, really dove into it. But she has discovered that 20% of mammalian, not just human population, animal population is more sensorily sensitive. They are the super noticers. And there may be some sort of an evolutionarily, benefit for that. because you're the one that's going to notice that the hawk is coming for your children, or that the lion is crawling up, or you may be, the lion, understanding that something bad's going to happen, that kind of a thing.
That makes total sense. How interesting too, that it's not just humans. That's so interesting that this is like an animal genetic difference. That's so interesting.
Well, everybody knows a hypersensitive dog.
That's
right?
true. Yeah, that's very true.
Or a horse.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we all do.
Yeah, that's such a good.
We don't get to know the hypersensitive cats very well because they're funny.
Too aloof. They don't care. They don't want you to get to know them anyway. That's so true, though. That's so true. So when we're talking about just kind of managing life, being a highly sensitive person, what are some of the things? Because, there's kind of this fine line between experiencing it all and like taking it all in, like on us, So when we're talking about just functioning day to day, what would you say are some of the things that highly sensitive people might struggle with like relationally or environmentally? Like what are some of the things that might be a challenge for us to be aware of?
Well, it's various. It's not across the board. It depends on how gently you were handled as a child, whether or not you had to super mask or super subdue. Because, we know what we're talking about when we talk about that, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like if you have ADHD, you had to super mask and try to get stuff done. And then they yelled at you, "You're so different every day." And you're like, yeah. But then there is the other thing, and it's the fact that we feel how uncomfortable other people are when we express our boundaries. And this people who are not traumatized. These are people who just notice. And we tend to like let people move us. We let our feet move until this is a cool thing. And I talked about this before we recorded. Like I just worked with a client and she hit that point where enough is enough. And I choose me. There is no amount of, energy that anybody else can feel or need that is not more valuable than preserving my sanity, my energy. But unfortunately, a lot of us have to get to the breaking point before we get there.
Right.
My mission is like, really? Do you have to? Don't you want to do it before that?
Right. Right.
But yeah, we do tend to allow more than we want. We're going to say yes when we really want to say no because we want to be nice. Yeah. We're going to be concerned about every person's feelings about this decision we're about to make, especially if it's our family or it's our team that we're managing. We're going to take into account how what we do lands in the world more so than people who are not highly sensitive. But you know what else we can do, which is amazing, is we can instantly cut to the chase and know exactly what point A all the way to point D happens. We don't need A, B, C. We just go, oh, B, there it is. And so that helps with our speed and clarity with decision making. And so there's that. So it's a two-way street. Yeah, we're going to rob Peter to pay Paul, and we're Peter. We'll do it a lot.
Yeah. What are some of the ways helping? Because I mean, I know I've worked with a lot of women where the boundary thing is a hard thing to, it's not as easy as, just set boundaries. Like it's like a rewiring that has to happen. Like this is not just a simple quote, fix. So how do you recommend people kind of getting started with that, setting boundaries and actually sticking to them, not, caving?
Well, here's the interesting thing about boundaries. I like to look at the other way around. Why are the boundaries weak? What is the reason that you allow the boundaries to go? And it's based on value. What do you value higher? Your X, Y, or Z, or this other human, or the need of this situation, or the fact that you haven't eaten and it's 3:00 in the afternoon, but I have to get this done.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's what do you value? And I understand that tunnel vision is cool and you can get a lot of stuff done, but it's not a sustainable practice.
Right.
And we understand that being generous is amazing, but it's not a sustainable practice.
Right.
So what I do for the people I'm leading is get them to get a level above and check the knee-jerk decision over the weight. Does this person really deserve a drop of my blood? Do they actually deserve it? Have they earned it in my life? Or is this a knee-jerk reaction that I'm so used to when people press me in a certain way that I'm going to move my feet to make them happy? Even if these people are short and you're their mother. I want you to remember that. You can hold the line and eventually, and this is a true story, they come back in their 20s and say, "Thanks, Mom.
Right.
We appreciate that."
Yep, for sure. When they have the perspective to understand why you did it in the first place.
Yep.
Yeah. Oh, that's
So
great.
it's going back to the higher discernment is the best first way to start, because that way you can use your strengths rather than moving from a point of weakness is, I feel how bad they feel. I can't do it. No, you're going to move your discernment strengths, because that's another thing about highly sensitive people. Amazing discernment skills. Use them.
Yeah. I feel like that's the hard, because what you just said, the example you just said, I know that's so hard for a lot of women, is especially when you have, kids, like growing on adult kids, right? I mean, I've dealt with this in my family. I have friends who've dealt with this in their families, where it's so easy to take on, their pain as your own. And I mean, I think we all know on a conscious level that that's not a healthy way to be. But I think that discernment you're talking about, there's like this cloud that sometimes is like that fog, maybe is a better description of like covering that discernment. Because like you said, it's there. And when you're a highly sensitive person, you have that gift, but there's like this fog sometimes, especially when it's your own kids, I think, just from my experience and witnessing other people. There's like this fog that kind of clouds it. And it's hard to kind of separate that and separate their pain and their emotions or whatever from yours. But like you said, I agree. I think that is such a gift that so many highly sensitive people have, that they do have, but sometimes it's hard to access that.
Well, my children taught me some amazing things. And mine are, gosh, I have a child that's almost 40. Hard to believe. When we were going through that transitional period of, the quasi-adult, they taught me something really important, that I was to defer to trusting that they'll figure it out. Even if they came to me for advice, that was going to be my first default thing. They're going to figure out, instead of doing the mother thing was, what are the millions of things that could go wrong? And so if I led with, oh, these guys are going to figure it out. They just want to touch base with me. They don't want to be, they don't want their balloon shot down.
Right.
They don't want to be told how bad life is. They don't want to be rescued. Even if they say they want to be rescued, they don't want to be rescued. They really don't. They want to be supported. And so the difference of supporting, say, a 16-year-old going, like, no, you can't go there. That's crazy. Instead, you're going to say, oh, put yourself in, like, do a thought experiment. What does it feel like when you make this decision? What does it feel like when you just talk to them as they're a peer? And gosh, does that really help? To this day, my oldest child is male, and they don't usually come to moms
Yeah.
for important advice, right?
Right.
Just last weekend, he called and wanted some life advice. And so therefore, something must be clicking right, because I never tell him what to do.
Yeah.
I always just guide him through his decision.
Yeah.
And that's all they're looking for.
Yeah. That's very insightful. I appreciate that. I think that's very helpful. The other thing I know that you talk about is, and we've talked about this on the show in different capacity, but the perfectionism, we talked about this a lot as a somewhat still recovering perfectionist myself, the perfectionism and the procrastination, and why so many, there's different ways we can look at both of those things, right? And there's things we might see it as, a like developmental flaw, or like, why am I like this? Right. There's so many things we look at. But I like that your take on this, that this could actually be a pattern, a sensitivity pattern, and not a character flaw, or like something that's wrong with this, or just being like we're ADD, right?
Oh, yeah. And this one took me forever to figure out. Like, my gift, everybody has a unique gift. And mine is to step back and look at the giant pattern, big giant pattern. And I was a horrendous procrastinator. And by the way, I'm going to add this as a little pro tip. Don't ask yourself why. Ask yourself, to what purpose?
That's good.
What's the real thing underneath this? Because when you ask yourself why, the first thing that stupid voice in your head is to say, because you're such a crazy why.
Yeah.
And that's really helpful.
Yeah.
Because then the perfectionist will go in. So to me, procrastination and perfectionism are two sides of the same coin, and they have their root in the same thing, which is uncertainty. And it's how you react to uncertainty and that's a sensitivity issue. There are different ways to do this. One, you could walk yourself through what you are certain of. What do I really know? What am I projecting? What am I making up? What story am I talking about this? You're going to say, what do I actually know? A lot of people say, well, if you knew you couldn't fail, do it. That doesn't work for a highly sensitive person, because they have really great imagination and they can figure out millions of ways to fail. And so it's better to say, what do I know? And small step can I take that I know? And the next thing that really works for a highly sensitive person, at least this one here speaking, was I bet you could do it for 5 minutes. I just promise that you can do it for 5 minutes and then you're allowed to do something else. And what that does is it stops our natural inability to do the task transfer, because that's a brain thing. That's a highly sensitive brain thing, the transferring of from one task to the next. And so if you just say, do it for 5 minutes, then the next thing you know, you look down and it's done. There's a girl on TikTok, and I love her point of view. It's like, this is a task I've been procrastinating on. Let's time to see how long it actually takes to do it. And sometimes it's like 5 minutes. So look, this is the junk drawer I've been talking about cleaning out for 5 years. A time elapsed 5 minutes and 7 seconds.
That's
it's
great.
like that kind of a thing.
That's so good.
And so those two tricks help. What do I actually know? Or what am I actually, to what is this purpose? And then the other one is I can do it for 5 minutes. I give myself permission to quit after 5 minutes if I hate it.
Yeah.
They work great. They really do.
That's so good. It's very practical. I do think that also helps kind of I don't know if stigmatize is the word I want to use, but because there's a lot of, it kind of de-escalates. Because I know for me, because you're right. I also think we don't, what you said, I'm so glad you said that, is procrastination and perfectionism being two sides of the same coin. Because I also think a lot of people don't see it that way either. They see them as opposite ends of the spectrum, and that's not it. But I think there's so much, we attach so many emotions and stuff around being a perfectionist and, or procrastinating, like those things. So I think that just those questions that you just said, like to ask yourself those things, to walk yourself through, can also kind of release a lot of the judgment we have about ourselves when we're kind of in those, either the procrastination or the perfectionist patterns.
Well, I'm glad you said that. I'm glad you used the J word, because that's it. We are so heavily sitting in judgment of ourselves. And that is where the actual pressure is. It isn't coming from the outside. The call is coming from inside of the house, girls.
Yeah.
It really is. So what you need to do is ask yourself, remember, going up to that next level of discernment, is this level of pressure appropriate for this task?
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes we just knee jerk that pressure.
Yeah, that's true.
And so if you step back and go, is this level of pressure worthwhile? Or here's another really cool one. If I failed, what could I survive? And it turns out you end up talking yourself into the fact that, well, how could I possibly fail? This is an effortless task. Because I've tried that thought experiment where I go, if I've absolutely effed this into next week, right? If I screwed this so royally that I don't recover, what could I survive? And I realized, well, dang, the chances of that happening are so low. And then I talk myself into doing it. Okay, I'll do it for 5 minutes.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It's when we step out of zombie brain, because that's what's causing it, is a zombie brain. We get into patterns. We lock ourselves into our patterns. The patterns that, and by the way, we've all heard this, the patterns that got you where you are not going to let you grow past where you are. So by stopping and noticing, especially if you're an HSP, remember you're a super noticer, by stopping and noticing and going, not why do I do this, but what is the purpose of this? What is the benefit I am receiving from this behavior? I get to avoid responsibility if I make a mistake, or I get to blah, blah. But then, what is the cost? What's the cost? What's the benefit? We're all good at that. We can do it. We just never apply it in a realistic way to ourselves.
Yeah. 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 I love that reframe too. This is getting a little bit off topic, but I love that reframe, asking for what purpose, and asking how does this serve me? I don't know if you've ever read the book Existential Kink, but that's kind of the purpose of, it goes deeper than that, but the purpose of that is, finding these patterns that you witnessing these patterns within yourself. And then basically there's it's not an adage, but I don't remember which researcher said it, but evidence, or having is evidence of wanting. There's something in you that wants this, there's a payoff on some level, but it's recognizing what is the payoff, and then recognizing subconsciously what the payoff is for you is when you can kind of dismantle it and kind of move past it. So I'm glad that I feel like that's such a good reframe, is okay, for what purpose? Why, how is this possibly serving me? And then being able to kind of take it from there.
It was that helpful for me. It changed my whole framework on how I dealt with the world, even. The hypercritical, the high pressure, where we're critical of others, critical of self, critical of what we do and all that. It disappeared when I understood what the purpose was. Because I realized it was so my parents won't yell at me. Wait a minute, I'm 40.
Right. Your parents
are going to yell at me anymore.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's that like that pattern has been stuck in there for so freaking long, then it's time to let it, it's a huge aha for me.
Hey, y'all, we'll get right back to the episode. But first, let me ask you this. You've built a vision that others admire. And you've built something that you're really proud of. But behind the scenes, your body feels like it's lagging behind. It just can't quite catch up to your brilliance and your mission that you have. That late night second wind, the foggy mornings, the hormone shifts, the endless push and forcing. You can't strategize your way out of that. And you already know you don't need more supplements. You don't need another supplement stack. You also don't need another side hustle disguised as self-care, because nobody wants to have their health as a side hustle. This is about recalibrating your entire ecosystem. And that's why I created the Quantum Reset, a premium 3-month high-touch healing experience for visionary women who are ready to feel as powerful in their bodies as they do in their business. Inside, we decode your nervous system, your minerals, your hormones. We read your labs like the sacred text that it is, so we have actual answers. And then we pair that with deep energetic recalibration, subconscious release. We use gene keys, we use human design, and true embodied healing. This isn't about fixing burnout, because that's not what we're doing here. This is about becoming the woman whose body is powerful, whose body is completely electric, whose energy, clarity, radiance finally matches the size of her mission. If you know your success isn't meant to cost you your vitality, and you're ready for a science-backed, spirit-led reset, then the Quantum Reset is your invitation. So check the link in the show notes or send me a message on Instagram, and let's bring your body back online with your brilliance. Now, let's get back to the show. Yeah, for sure. Those things are so multi-layered. The other thing I wanted to ask you is, I find this so interesting, is that so many highly sensitive people are drawn to entrepreneurship. And I would love to hear your take on that, and why, or if like this type of work as a creative, as an entrepreneur is better suited, or highly sensitive people are better suited for that kind of job versus, traditional jobs.
Well, it's not random, because there's a lot of things about being a highly sensitive person that just don't match corporate culture.
This is true.
Or don't match any type of structure. In fact, I just did a social media post on, you know what? I'm going to confess, I wake up different every day. I am not the same person every day.
Right.
And unfortunately, corporate not only doesn't value humans, sorry, they just don't. And they expect you to show up as a cog.
Right.
And you're not. There's the first tick. But the second one, and this is generally in females, but it does happen in a lot of guys, it's the fact that there's so much covert, violent pressure in the corporate culture that it causes women to, just like put on a mask that isn't them, and then it gets too heavy, and then they don't want to do it. And then it drags them, they talk themselves into, I can do it for the money just a little bit longer. Yeah, this project, they need me, they'll fall apart if I don't lead them through this. You find to do all these excuses, but when you move into entrepreneurship, and I'm going to say that most women do, there is one thing that you are going to have to let go of, and that is the corporate idea of production and getting things out.
Mm-hmm.
Because the one time in your life where you are in charge, you tend to be the mean boss.
Yeah, to yourself.
So what did you do? You quit so you could get away from a mean boss? So that's when you pull out your let's work with it instead of against it idea, which is cool. That's what I teach. I teach alignment. I teach people to stop working against who they are and start working with it. You don't want to paddle upstream. You want to paddle down. And the first thing you're going to do with entrepreneurship is to get real with your abilities and what you don't know, hire, or do not expect yourself to be able to do everything because of lack of money or lack of skills or whatever. We're in the information age. And then be gentle with yourself when you screw up. Not if, but when. Those are the two things I would say about entrepreneurship, because you're gonna expect it.
Yeah.
Plan for it.
Mm-hmm.
And then when it happens, it's like, oh, cool, there's the first one. I'm done. Now we'll do the next.
On to the next.
Yes.
Yeah.
But yeah, highly sensitive people need to be able to have the flexibility. That's the main thing. Yeah. You have to be flexible. And corporate doesn't allow flexibility.
Yeah.
And so entrepreneurship is pretty much your next step.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that makes complete sense. And I think the sooner we understand that piece, the sooner so many can, because I agree. I do think that, I mean, whether we're talking about corporate or anything else, I think that just in Western society, a lot of us wear the masks of operating in ways we should. We've talked a lot about productivity and tying our worth to productivity and output before on the show. And I think that that's the trap we fall into when we kind of feed into, kind of the very masculine structure of work or business or whatever it is. So I think that flexibility piece is such a big learning, such a valuable piece to learn as a highly sensitive person, that's really what you thrive off of, is that flexibility and being able to, like let your creative flag fly and not have to be stuck in like very rigid structure.
You know what else, though? Most highly sensitive people are wired for a deeper coherence. And so when they are giving to somebody else, it's all surface, right? And so they really need to feel the spaciousness and the way to lean into something that feels right. Because, yeah, they don't want to be micromanaged, and yeah, they don't want pressure, but they really, really want to have a connection and a passion. It's super important to their life satisfaction. That's the main thing.
Yeah.
And it doesn't matter whether you're in corporate or, in a small mom and pop shop. If it's surface, you don't want to play it.
That's it. Yeah. You need the depth. That's important. Yeah.
Yeah.
So what can you tell us as we start to kind of wrap up here? What can you give us? And you've mentioned quite a few, but if there's anything we've left out, just whether it's strategies or just things to contemplate or things we can work with to help those of us who are highly sensitive people to be able to use this as our superpower versus something that holds us back or we feel as a restriction.
Okay. Permission to speak freely.
Please do.
Stop being a bitch to yourself.
Okay. I like it.
That is the first one. If you wouldn't say it to anybody else, then don't say it to yourself. If you wouldn't treat anybody else the way you are treating yourself, don't treat yourself that way. Would you tell somebody you loved, you don't have time to pee right now? You have to go. You have to wait. Hold it. You don't have time to pee. You would never say.
That's true.
You would never say, oh my God, you're not allowed to sit down. You would say, rest, rest. So taking care of yourself is non-negotiable. If you have to eat, if you're hungry, eat. If you have to pee, heaven's sakes, the world is not going to stop for the 5 minutes it takes for you to run to the bathroom. I say this because I know people who have hurt their transitional epithelium, if you know what I mean, because they hold it so long.
Yeah.
It's actually not good for your body.
Right.
And so there's that. We get tunnel vision. We get project oriented. We get passion driven. And there we forget ourselves. And that's the first thing I would say to people. Don't be such a bitch to yourself.
Yeah, that's good advice. That's good advice. I think we could all take that advice. Is there anything else that we can do to potentially help with? Because if I'm just thinking of, there's people out there who are not highly sensitive people. Is there anything we can do to help as we relate to other people, whether it's in marriage, relationship, partnership, whether it's a team at work or, you have a company and you have employees, like just relationship wise to kind of navigate that?
Well, the first one I learned is just because you're in their head does not mean they're in yours. Brene Brown says this best. If you are giving instructions to a spouse, a child, or an employee, lead with what the ending looks like. Paint done. That is so useful. It stops the friction. Number 2, when you're in leadership, state the consequences of failure to action along with the desired action if you're giving directions. For example, if you are raising teenagers, this worked really well for me. Do X, Y, and Z. If you do not do it by a specified time period, X, Y, and Z will happen, which was usually there'll be a ding on your allowance. The car keys will disappear for a week. Oops, looks like you're not going to play in the game. It's that kind of stuff. It's not all take away your iPad.
Right.
Hit them indifferent, be resourceful. And then you give gentle warnings. Time frame for project ending is in 12 hours. You basically honor their ability to lead themselves. And then you don't discuss the failure. This has happened. I see that it has happened. We don't negotiate. We just, because you're not teaching them how to be bullied. This is what my children thank me for. I'm actually taught them how to be in life. Because your boss isn't going to say, oh, you missed it. I'm sorry. Let's try that again. No.
That's so true.
So you just say, looks like this is what you chose. I see. Click. And that's the end of it. No discussions. That is the kindest way to lead people and to help raise intuitive people. That's for children. Now, clearly you don't want to do that to your husband or the people you work with, but you want to do some sort of, these are my expectations. This is what it looks like when it's done. And this is what happens when it isn't, whenever you're giving instructions.
Mm-hmm.
The next thing that's non-negotiable is find something that feeds your soul and schedule it. That's absolutely imperative. If you know you need to have that yoga class, then by goodness, that's etched in stone. If you know you need to have that quiet time where you walk your dog for an hour and a half in a beautiful forest, do it. It's more important than anything else, because then you're going to get, I don't know if this is going to be on video or not, but y'all, I'm not young. I am a senior citizen, and I would have to hate for people to suffer the way I did for so long. I really, really would love to remind you that it is so easy to sacrifice yourself for others.
For sure.
But then you're going to wake up when you're 60 and you're sick and you're old and you're burnt out. You don't want to play anymore.
Yeah, right. That's it.
Yeah.
100%. Yeah. Such good advice. Thank you for sharing that. And like I said at the beginning, I think this is going to resonate with so many women. And I think that so many women listening are recognizing themselves in this, even if they didn't know that they, would be categorized as a highly sensitive person. So I think this is giving people some insight. I do have one more question that I want to ask you that I'd like to ask everybody as we wrap up. But before I do that, can you let everybody know where they should find you to follow along and learn more about how to operate as a highly sensitive person, potentially work with you, all the things?
Right. I am on Instagram, BLISSLife_coach. I'm also on TikTok at the same handle. I don't know my LinkedIn profile. I'm sorry. But I have a YouTube channel that's under Bliss Life Coach without the underscore.
Okay.
And I'm at sallyreid.com if they want to find me there.
Okay. Of course, I'll have all the links to that in the show notes, so y'all can go check that out and follow along and learn from Sally. And I think this is such an important conversation, just to recognize our own uniqueness and the uniqueness of others, and just to be able to, I love conversations like this for that reason, so that we learn how to relate to ourselves in a deeper way. We learn how to relate with others in a deeper way. And I think this is just one more opportunity for us to do that, and learning about highly sensitive people and how they operate and, why they do the things they do. I think it's such a valuable lesson for all of us. So thank you for that. The question that I want to leave you with, or I want to ask you, leave everyone with, what do you think is the most important thing you can do to live with purpose?
Oh my goodness. You're not gonna, it's a very simple point of view. It's what I call the 1 and 0 point of view. Things either are or they are not. And it goes along with the now, next, and over theories. So how this works for me personally is, if I don't have control over it and it's a 1, then it's an over. It's over. I don't need to deal with it anymore. If I do have control over it and I can act, then it's a 1 and it's a now. And if it is something that happened and I lost control over it, then it's a 0 and it's an over. And those simple rules, 1, 0, now, next. Also, there's a next. There's 1s and 0s that are next as well. So it's a 1 means is or is not, available or not available. Does it have a placeholder? Or is it a null? Is it a nothing? And that is such a concrete way to cut through the emotional. And we know we are emotional. Flotsam and jetsam, shall I put it, and get right to the heart of what reality is, because nobody can make a good decision without seeing what's actually there and then applying the emotions, rather than applying the emotions and trying to wade through it and find what's there. So that's how one can live with purpose, is find clarity now. It doesn't really matter if it was clarity last week, because last week is over, or clarity next week, because next week is next. It has to be clarity now.
I love that. Thank you for explaining that. I think that's such a great answer. And I think that we can all learn from that as well. So thank you. And thank you, Sally, for your work that you're doing with all of us HSPs out there, and for spending some time with us today.
Thanks, Hope. I really appreciate you having me on. It's fun.
It was.